Hello, everybody. Today we have a great topic about GDPR compliance. Yeah, I see that already few people are online. I think we will not wait too long today, so I will start from more general information. So I think people who also wanted to join today will join us and will not lose a lot of information. So today we will talk about, of course, about building GDPR compliance architecture, and I decided to split this topic into few. And today I will talk more about what AWS offer you to be GDPR compliant. And on one of our next workshop, we will check some examples. So what responsibility is on your side. So let's start a little bit about presentation of myself. I'm a co-founder and CTO of ZenBit company, and this company is already 6 years. But generally, I work in technology field about 10 years. So mostly work with AWS, so also with Azure. Little experience with Google, not too much. But I think this will be enough to give you some advice and share my previous experience, especially in healthcare industry. And GDPR is very close connected to healthcare, so I'm sure I have what to share with you. So let's start, I think, with general stuff. So what is GDPR and why it needed? And GDPR is special requirements which work for European region and have standards how to protect data, some security requirements, and compliance. It works only in European region, as I already mentioned, and the importance of these topics is a penalty. So if you have application which should be GDPR compliant, but it doesn't, the penalty could be like or 20 million or 4% of annual worldwide turnover, which will be higher. That penalty will have. So nobody want to have so big money lost. And based on that, let's start talking about how AWS can help us with it. And before actually I will start, I want to talk about share responsibility, because even if you use AWS or Azure or any other cloud provider, they will not fully guarantee that your application will be GDPR compliant. And that's why cloud provider use a share responsibility model, especially if we are talking about AWS. So AWS is responsible for protecting the global infrastructure that run all the services offered in the cloud, and also it's responsible for site service like abstract services like S3 or DynamoDB. And as a customer, you're responsible for data controllers and for everything that you put in cloud or connect to the cloud. It's important to take in mind. According to AWS documentation, they say that they have the biggest amount of standard and compliance certification that any other cloud provider. And based on that, let's see what actually AWS provide for us to help be compliant. And we will start from data access control. So if we check the GDPR documentation in Article 25, we will see that it says that controllers shall implement appropriate technical and organizational measure for ensure that by default only personal data which are necessary for a specific purpose of processing are proceed. So what does it mean? It means that you need give access only for specific resources and only to specific purpose. And first service that help you to manage it's AWS identity and access management. So when you create AWS account, a root user is automatically created for account, and it have access to all AWS services and resources. But instead of using this account every day, AWS highly recommend use additional roles, and for that roles give only that that access which is needed to implement some task or or define some other users. So you need to think about to set minimum set of permission that required to complete each task. Very similar service to identity and access management is temporary access token. It's STS service. And main difference is first of all, a temporary access token is temporary. So it's give access only from 15 minutes to 12 hours. And second difference is it's not stored with the user. Instead, they are generated dynamically and provide to the user when requested. Other tool which help you with data access control is multi-factor authorization. I think you should be familiar with it in a lot of services that you use, maybe for in bank application. So it means that when you try to access AWS account, or it also can be through how to say, it also can be connected not to AWS account specifically, but for example, if you use Cognito authorization, you can also turn on a multi-factor authorization, and in this case, your application will have multi-factor authorization. And here I also provide some example which you can use. It's example. So this example allows full access to API operation in EC2, but explicitly deny access to specific API operations for stop instance and terminal instance. You can use it for your specific case. Other service is other things that I want to pay your attention is also access to AWS resources. So to implement granular access to your AWS resources, you can grant different levels of permissions to different people for different resources. So for example, some users can have full access to EC2 S3, but other users can have only read access access to the same service. And like other users can have full permission. Also, I have some example for you. So this example demonstrates you if we want to give all action to specific S3 bucket and explicitly deny access to every AWS service that is not in S3 bucket. Next one item is about regional service access. As a customer, you maintain ownership of your content, and you select which AWS service you can process, store, or host your data. And it's important because based on the shared responsibility model, which I already mentioned, you choose the region which your content is stored. So, for example, as we are talking about GDPR, it's connected to Europe. So if you know that all your services should be in Europe, you select European region. It's have multiple locations, but just take in mind that it should be in Europe, and it's your responsibility to select these regions from all lists that AWS provide. Next one is control access to web application mobile app. I a little bit mentioned already Cognito, and actually it's about Cognito. So with Cognito, you can you need add user login and access to control features on your web application and mobile application. Also, it protects the identity of the user, and as I already said, you can add multi-factor authorization, which will increase the protection. Sorry, I forgot to mention that if you will have any questions, please let me know during the workshop, because there are some delay, and maybe and when I will finish and we will have Q&A session, I can maybe see your question with some delay. So it's better to comment during my presentation. Okay. Data. Okay, next one. Next one is monitoring and logging. And according to, again, reference to GDPR Article 30, each controller and whatever applicable, the controller's representative shall maintain and records of processive alternatives under its responsibility. And it's this article. So if you look deep in this article, you will have list of all the rules and detailed information about the record which should be gathered, and we will talk about specific data that you need to store and monitor in other workshop. Today we will check which service you can use to actually monitor and log in. And it's not only CloudWatch, about which we have been talking about already a couple times. We also will cover some extra services. And first one is AWS config. It's provide a detailed view of configuration of many types of AWS resources. It includes how the resources connected to each other, how they were previously configured, so you can see how the configuration and relationship have changed over time. And here in the screen, you have seen some example about how AWS config work. With AWS config, you can do such stuff like get snapshot of current configuration, get configuration on one or more resources that exist in your account. You can get historical configuration of one or more resources. And also you can get notification when resource is created, modified, or deleted. Okay. Next service is to be compliant with auditing and service analysis. Service that AWS suggests is CloudTrail. So actually what it's do, it's continuously monitoring AWS account activity, and what is good, the history of, it's provide a history of API calls that have been captured for your account. It's including calls from management console, from SDK, from command line tools, and high-level AWS services. So you can identify which user and accounts call AWS APIs for services that support CloudTrail. The source API address that calls have been made from, and when actually call have been occurred. Also, CloudTrail logs is aggregated to S3 bucket, and after could be analyzed for example, for auditing purpose, or like for troubleshooting activities. And also, as CloudTrail logs are centralized, you can also use the same like log archive account to centralize logs from other resources, for example, CloudWatch logs or load balancer. What else? CloudWatch can also trigger precondition CloudWatch events. So you can, for example, you can use these events to notify users or systems that event has actually occurred. And one of example, and one of the example which is here is you want to monitor activities in EC2 instance. So what you can do, you can create CloudWatch event rule. Then when specific event happened in the EC2 instance and event is captured in the logs, the rule triggers an AWS Lambda function, which send a notification email about event to the administrative person. What this email includes? This email will include information about what event happened, which user performed the action, EC2 instance details, and some other information. So it's about benefits of CloudTrail. Okay, so next one is tools to collecting and processing logs. For this purpose, like CloudWatch logs can use to monitor, stand, access your logs file. It really have big big scope of actions that you can do with CloudWatch. We will not stay deep into it. I already mentioned on some of our workshop, just to take in mind that you can look to it deeper and configure events, alerts, triggers for most of AWS services and architecture. Okay. So other part of GDPR is about discovering and protecting data. And according to the Article 32, which says that the controller and the processor shall implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure a level of security appropriate to the risk, included inter alia as appropriate, which includes the ability to ensure the ongoing confidentiality, integrity, availability, and resilience of processing system and services. And other item, a process for regularly testing, accessing, and evaluating the effectiveness of technical and organizational measures for ensuring the security of the processing. So this is a quote from Article 32, and what actually it's mean? It means that you need to protect your data, and to help the customer actually identify and protect the sensitive data at scale, AWS offer Amazon Messi. What is it? Actually, it's fully managed data security and data privacy service. On the hood, it uses pattern matching and machine learning model and help to detect personal information to discover and protect sensitive data which is stored on S3 bucket. Which information can it detect? It can detect information about name, email, also birthday, nationality, reference number. On the slide, you can see how the report will look, or how the stories look. It's what I wanted to share with you about this Messi service. Quite useful tool. Next one is centralized security management, and it's also connected to protecting data, because when many organizations like when you increase and you have a lot of AWS services on the hood, you need to monitor all this difficult infrastructure, which also can lead to some leaks of security, of protection, and and let's look what services can help you with it. So first one is Control Tower service. It provides a method to set up and govern a new secure multi-account AWS environment. So it's automates the setup of the landing zone, which include multi-account environments, which is based on best practice blueprints. Also, it enables governance using guardrails that can choose from prepackaged lists. And what is also good is that it has centralized logs coming from CloudTrail, which we already talked about, and config logs. Config logs is stored in S3. Other service is Security Hub. So it's another service that supports centralization and can improve visibility into organization. And it prioritizes and centralizes security and compliance funding across AWS accounts and services. For example, not for example, but such as GuardDuty and Amazon Inspector. And it can be integrated with security firmware from third-party services to help you analyze security trend and identify the highest priority for security issues. So we already, like we just mentioned, GuardDuty. So let's check what is it. And if look to GuardDuty is a good service that make threat detection. So it helps you very accurately and easy monitor and protect your AWS account, workloads, and data stored in S3. So, for example, it can detect unusual API calls, suspicious outbound communication to known malicious IP addresses, or possible data that trapped using DNS queries, which have been used as transport mechanism. Also, it's enabled to provide accurate finds by leverage machine learning powered threat intelligence and third-party security partners. So a lot of services will work with security in AWS, as maybe you already mentioned, use machine learning on the hood. So good to know about it. Next one is Amazon Inspector, and it's automated security assessment service that help. Sorry, I think I need to check. Yeah, that help improve the security and compliance of application which deployed on EC2 instance. So Inspector automatically access application for expose, vulnerability, and deviation. And after performing an assessment, Amazon Inspector produce a detailed list of security findings and prioritize by level of severity. Okay. Sorry, I think I'm too far. Yeah, somewhere like that. Okay, next one is Amazon CloudWatch events, and it's what is enabled. It's to send you events from one our AWS account to other, and become a receiver for events from other accounts or organization. So it's not connected to one account, which will help you to manage it. And this is what you can example of the schema for CloudWatch events you can see now on the slide. Other service which I want to mention is AWS organization, and this service help you also centrally manage and govern complex environments. It enables you to control access, compliance, and security in multi-account environment. Really recommend not to use each of your services. So if you have services or products which does not depend on each other, it very often makes sense to split it into different accounts. So one account responsible only for one application and for one compliance, and actually organization will help you to manage all the stuff and see what going on from higher point of view. Okay, and the last one service which I want also share with you is System Manager. It's a service that provides you visibility and control of your infrastructure. So you can view operational data from multiple AWS services from console and automate operational tasks across them. So, for example, by integration Amazon Inspector with System Manager, security assessment will simplify and automate it because you can install Amazon Inspector agent automatically. And using computer cloud system management when EC2 instance is launched. You can also perform automatic remediation for Amazon Inspector findings by using EC2 system management and Lambda function. This is what was about it was about monitoring and logging. And now let's talk about data protection. Again, like quick reference to the original documentation and especially to Article 32, which says that implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure a level of security appropriate to the risk, including the pseudonymization and encryption of personal data. In addition, organization must safeguard against the unauthorized disclosure of or access to personal data. And to talk about it, so about encryption and how to do it in the service, we will talk in a later lecture. Today we will check which where you can like levels of encryption and in which where you need to pay attention. Let's take it like that. Of course, so why encryption actually needed? Yeah, so it's a reduce a risk associated with the storage of personal data because data is unreadable if you don't have correct key. And like first strategy that can be used for encryption is encryption data at rest. So encryption data at rest is via regulatory compliance and data protection. It helps to ensure that sensitive data saved on the disk is not readable by any users, and AWS provides multiple options to increase at rest and encryption key management. So, for example, you can use encryption SDK with CMK created and management in KMS to encrypt arbitrary data. If we're talking about encryption data in transit, there are a few ways to do it, and firstly, it's when actually it's happened when you move data from one system to another. It could be not only outside of AWS, but it also can be inside the AWS. And when you create AWS account, it's logically isolated section of AWS cloud. The Amazon Virtual Private Cloud is provisioned to it. So you can launch AWS resources in virtual network that you defined. You can complete control over your virtual network environment, including like selecting your own API address range, creation of subnets, and configuration of row tables and network gateway. Also, you can create hardware virtual private network and connection between your corporate data center and your Amazon VPC. What else? And other things. So virtual private cloud is one thing that you can manage to provide encryption data in transit, and other one is HTTPS. So to use SLS protocol. To do it, you can use certificate manager, which can be provided to, for example, if you use S3 as a hosting and CloudFront help you actually to connect S3 and also connect certificates. And also certificates can be established to encrypted transport between systems for your workloads. Okay, which encryption tools actually you want to you can use for in AWS? So first of all is KMS service. It's generate and manage both root key and data key. It's integrated with a lot of resources in AWS, so it's very easy to use it with in AWS ecosystem. Next one is Cloud HSM. It provides third level validated. It's securely store self-managed cryptographic key, and it also it includes also KMS key and data keys. Other service is encryption SDK. This service provides client-side encryption library for implementing encryption and decryption of operation actually for any type of data. AWS provides own service like DynamoDB, and DynamoDB have encryption client, which provide a client-side encryption library for actually encrypting data table before sending them to the database. In this case, DynamoDB. Okay. Data protection by design by default. What this point about is that you can use all the services, but very important point is that don't by default AWS deny any service any rules which are not allowed. So everything that you allowed is allowed, everything else is denied, even if you haven't thought about it. And it's not so AWS, of course, doing it by default, but you can also when you grant access for somebody or for somebody as user or someone as application or something like an application, you also need to think about it. So do not give all access. Give only those which we specifically needed, and add extra if needed extra. If we also make a reference to GDPR article, same principle say in Article 25. It says that controllers shall implement appropriate technical and organization measures for ensuring that by default only personal data which are necessary for each specific purpose of the processing are processed. Yeah, I think this is all what I wanted to share with you today. If you have any question, I will be glad to answer it. Anyway, I will be glad to see you in our LinkedIn group. Also, add me to the LinkedIn Live personally. If you have any questions which maybe appear to you later, you can connect me by email or also by LinkedIn by writing personal message. And if any topic you want to suggest for future purpose, feel free to let me know. Okay. No question. Then we are good. Hope it was useful for you. See you after a couple of weeks.